Hey everybody, I'm Maureen, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how to make McCall's 8442. It's the new vest pattern from McCall's from their fall line. It's a unisex pattern, so that means it's great for men and women. And we have about 8 views here. And so we are going to be making view D today. And just for the record, I realize that this is some dark fabric, but I used lighter thread in the tutorial. That way you guys can follow along very easily. So go ahead and grab your sewing tools and let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to be making view D, which has 3 buttons, and it has about the same neckline as this. As you can see, there are about 8 views here. Each of them have varying design elements. Like we've got a color block, and then the 2 models are actually wearing the views that have faux welt pockets. So if you decide to do the one with the faux welt pockets, then you would just kind of hand stitch these in place. And then you have some that have some binding and even just a slight crossbody going on right here. So it's very, very, very important that you do cut out the pattern pieces that correspond with the exact view that you want to make. The suggested fabrics are challis, chambray, cotton, cotton blends, denim, flannel, gabardine, lightweight corduroy, linen, velveteen, wool, and wool blends. For lining, you can use lining fabrics. And then this also calls for some feasible interfacing as well. And then there are suggested notions for whichever view that you decide to use. Pattern piece number 10, this is the front facing. You're going to cut 2 of fabric, 2 of interfacing. Pattern piece number 11, this is the front lining. You're going to cut 2. Pattern piece number 4, this is the back. You are going to cut 1 of fabric and then 1 of lining, and you'll do that on the fold here. Pattern piece number 3, and you'll cut 2. And pattern piece number 9, which is the front, and you'll cut 2. So for the first step, we're going to stay stitch along this outer edge on pattern piece number 9, and we'll do the same on the front facing as well, which is pattern piece number 10, if you're making the same vest as me. And we will also do this on the same lining pieces as well. And I realize this isn't part of the actual instructions, but this is something that I do for outerwear like this. And then next we are going to work on our back darts. So this is the lining piece here, and using best practices for darts, we are going to pin this. And if you've never made darts before, you line up your dart legs and then you put a pin in the line that you traced from the pattern, and you just make sure that it matches on the other side of the dart leg. And you'll want to do this for the lining piece and for the outer piece. And once you are finished pinning, you are going to stitch this down. There are many ways that you can sew darts, but typically the rule of thumb is that you do not backstitch at the smallest point on the dart. And my best practice for darts is that you can always minimize the stitch, and then you can sew a little bit off of the fabric just so that it locks it in versus having to do a manual knot with your hands. Okay, so once the darts are complete, go ahead and press them to the center back for the lining piece and the outer piece. Next, you want to work on your ties. So we are going to fold this in half long ways, and you'll do this for both of them. And you'll give it a good press. And then you are going to pin them, and then make sure you stitch on one short side of the edge and then along the long side. Once you're done, go ahead and clip the corners like you see here. And then you can grab your loop turner and you can start to turn that out. And typically you can kind of wedge your loop turner between that stitch right there to get it to come out through the other side. And once you turn it right side out, you want to make sure that you get the corners out really good. And it might be best to use like a small tool like a pin or a seam ripper for this part to kind of get that edge to come out a little bit better. And then you want to give this a good press. So the next part is that we're going to attach these to the side. So right under the notch for the side, there should be a dot that you marked. And we're going to take the raw edge and we're going to pin it right on top of that dot. And we'll do this for both sides. Head to your machine and do a basting stitch at 3/8. Next, we are going to attach the shoulder seams at our outer pieces, and we are going to sew this at 5/8 at our machine. And once you're done with that, go ahead and press those seams open at your iron. Next, we're going to work on pattern pieces 10 and 11, and you are going to take this side of the facing, and I know it looks like it won't fit, but it will, and you are going to pin it down to this part of the lining to the sewing machine and sew up the seam. So once these are sewn up, go ahead and press the seam towards the lining pieces. Then you're going to take your back lining piece and attach it right sides together, sewing it at the shoulders just like we did the outer pieces at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you'll press those open at the iron. Okay, so go ahead and open your vest, the lining pieces of your vest, and then place your outer pieces right sides together on top of the lining pieces. And you want to match up your seams and your notches. So we're going to pin here, matching up your fronts with your fronts. And even down to the bottom here as well. Okay. And when you take this to your sewing machine, I highly recommend that you start in the middle of the neckline and sew one way down and then sew the other way down and then do your armholes. That way everything is even and balanced. Once you're done with the neckline, you're going to want to start on your armholes, and you'll want to sew this down at 5/8 on both sides. Okay, so the neckline is all sewed up and the armholes on each side is all sewn up. And don't forget, you go all the way down to the bottom right here to sew it up as well. So now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna clip some notches in here just so that it's more flexible and easy to wear. So I'm gonna start with the armpit. And I'm not gonna go through the stitch. Okay. And now I'm gonna do the other armhole. And then I'm going to do a little bit of the neck. And it's okay to snip through the stay stitch line since we've already stitched it, but you don't want to go through this line right here on your neckline. So we're just going to clip in a couple of places here. That way it's more agreeable when you turn it right side out. Okay, and I think we're in a good spot. So now we are going to turn this right side out using the sides to turn it out. So now I'm going to give this a really good press. I'm also going to redraw these so I know what's going on in this pattern. Okay, so once we have pressed our vest, we have to close up the sides here. Now, I've already done it on this side, right? And so you don't see any seam lines on this side right here. We're gonna make this side look just like this side. So what we are going to do is we're going to put our vest outside pieces together. Make sure your strap is tucked in. And then what I'm going to do is, and make sure your outer pieces are facing one another. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally make like a mini sandwich. So I'm going to keep these 3 layers together. And then I'm literally turning this lining piece and flipping it around like this. So I don't want you to worry about anything going on over here. Just pay attention to this part. And then what you want to do is you want to pin this together. And the important part of this is make sure that this seam lines right up to the edge of this seam here. Put a pin in it. And yes, you are gonna have this tucked in and then your hem hanging out. Yes, you will. And then you're gonna take it to your sewing machine, you're gonna sew 5/8. Okay, now that we've sewn that seam, we are just gonna flip this right side out. And so now you've got a closed up seam here on the inside and a closed up seam on the outside. So at this point, all we would need to do is close up your bottom hem right here. And I will show you a little trick so that you won't have to slip stitch the entire thing. I've already done it on this side, but all you would do is take your lining piece, or tuck in your front lapel or your front vest piece, and almost like how you would do a coat facing, turn that like that. And I'm only going to sew up to the back dart because I feel like that's probably the most appropriate place to stop. Okay, and then you would sew this at 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so I sewed that bottom hem all the way up to the back dart. So I'm literally just gonna take this out. And oh my goodness, we just have this much left to slip stitch and press. And the cool thing is too, is that if you decide to top stitch this, then you wouldn't have to worry about slip stitching this part. So the top stitching on this is optional. And then of course you would add your buttons per your machine settings, and then you are all finished. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe, and you can follow me at Raven Maureen on TikTok, Threads, and right here on YouTube. See you next time. Bye.